Thank you for that question. The question for me is one that I know everybody in this room at some point or another has had to deal with this issue, because I've had to deal with this issue. My father is a victim of a violent crime. And many of you know that I coach high school kids. In fact, I was hoping one would be here tonight because I wanted to share the story if this question came up. Because he has shared with me the violence that goes on in his community. He lives down by Stewart Gardens, and he tells me about what goes on in his community. But what's eye-opening, he said to me when we were having this conversation, long before we even had the talk of a special session, he said, Coach, I want to show you my world, and I want to show you what I see. And I could go on and on and on. I only have just a limited amount of time. But I remember in my annual meeting with the police before the start of the session, I said, hey guys, out of curiosity, what do you make of this story? And I shared with him how he identified a person walking with a firearm, how he identified a person not walking with a firearm. And they all said, he's got it. He knows exactly what's going on. So in working on this issue, there's been a couple of things that I've either introduced or I'm supporting co-patroning. I know red flag laws, Delegate Mullen said, is one of the bills that I am co-patroning, and we do have it in there, a way forward that respects a person's due process rights, but also says that if you file a false claim, we're going to hold you accountable. But the bottom line is we're trying to make people safe. We're trying to get these guns out of the hands of firearms of people that can be a danger to themselves or a danger to others. Working with our local Commonwealth prosecutor, working with our police, working with the federal prosecutors, trying to give Virginia prosecutorial discretion so that we can use the same federal law that they use to be able to go after the illegal trafficking of firearms and get these guns off the streets. This is something that the federal prosecutors say is very effective. It's called Rule 35, and I was one of the very first people to come out with any proposed legislation because this is something that they said this could be very helpful to Virginia at the very get-go, and it's an easy fix to our law. We've talked about supporting our community service boards. Working with our community service boards, we're looking at ways that we can identify some of the challenges that people that have mental health issues, whether or not they should have a firearm if they, or part of the background check if they suffer from, not suffer, I'm so sorry, but whether or not they have schizophrenia or bipolar disorder 1, but also working with our law enforcement to make certain that the people are taking their medicine. When a person leaves the CSB, they're often given a dose just to get them through the day. But a lot of times, as has been shared with me by the CSB, that person will take the medicine out of their gum and the lip and they'll throw it away, and then they're out in the community. And so we need to be able to fund the CSBs appropriately so that they have the resources in working with our law enforcement, with our sheriff's department, to be able to go out and to keep up with people. And I'm an advocate for maybe a 30-day dosage so that when that person goes back into the community, they're calm, they're stable. Remember, if they go off their medicine, and we got to get them back. We've got to get them back to a psychiatrist, and we've got to find the appropriate dosage so that they're even keeled. This is a very difficult issue. But for anybody who's ever had a loved one that suffered as a family, when a person is not where they need to be, it's no fault of their own, but we've got to help them. And this is part and parcel of what we need to do to be able to find the appropriate funding. I think the last thing is, when we're looking at this issue of mental health, to be able to say, look, there is a time and a place for everything, and one of the things that we have to do is make certain that we don't try and cut corners. So earlier we talked about on Medicaid and things like that. I helped to defeat a proposal that would say, well, maybe we should have generics for psychotropic medicine. And I was also very proud to be able to lead the effort to say to people, look, we don't want guns in churches. Anglicans to Zoroastrians all agree we don't want guns in churches, and it's their property. Let them do what they like with them.